Previously on 3.
And she was like, I just know that's gonna be our house. A few days later, the house went up for sale. She told me she saw the devil. When the paranormal team came is when we were really desperate to make things stop. And I needed to run downstairs to the other people that were downstairs. And he said, if I don't, this thing's gonna attack you. And then I met AJ. If I had an overall goal to this, it would be to help people understand those who go looking for things like this usually won't find it. It's not always a fun or exciting experience. Most of the time, what's out there beyond us isn't positive. The people that don't believe in this stuff, I get it. I wouldn't believe in it either if I were them, hadn't seen it, felt it, stayed up all night, literally tortured by it. Those who don't believe, sometimes it's better that way. If I was given the option to change having an ability or what happened to me, I literally would in a heartbeat. Being interested and educated is one thing, but dabbling in things you don't understand, well, you'll find out why that's not a good idea.
Well, let's begin then.
After the paranormal team came to the house and the terrifying experience that I had in the hallway, things did calm down for a brief period of time. And during that brief period of time, a lot of things happened in my personal life, and I learned a lot of things. After that experience, I wanted to, much like Storms, learn everything I could about the paranormal, demonology, occult, anything I could learn about. I just absorbed it like a sponge. I learned about all the different religions. I just spent hours and hours and hours learning everything that I could. And in the process of doing so, I was online all the time. I had made a few friends online. And keep in mind, during this time, I was only probably 12, but I was just so fascinated with learning about where all this stuff comes from and what it means and what it meant to all of the things I felt and saw growing up too. And I came across a person that was on MySpace. His name was David, and there's something really different about him. The first thing that he said to me when he messaged me on there was about how God sent him to help me with something. And I thought, okay, that's strange that you'd say that because of everything that just happened to me, and I so desperately just wanted somebody to give me answers about why. And then he came out of nowhere. And so at first I was just like, okay, well, maybe God did send me a friend to have and to help me and teach me things. And it got more intense than that. Over a course of a few months, this guy knew when things were going to happen to me that he would have no way of knowing unless he was in my house. He knew if, I don't know, for example, if I fell down and got hurt, he knew when it was going to happen before it happened. Or if I had a bad dream, he knew what my bad dream was about, and I don't know how, because I didn't tell him. And that really freaked me out. How do you know this stuff? And one day, I had a dream that somebody told me he's not who he says that he is. And I woke up and he told me that God sent him to me because he's my guardian angel. And that's how he knows all of this stuff about me that he would have no way of knowing unless he could see me. And that really creeped me out. So I told my parents, and they flipped out. Were like, you can't talk to this guy anymore, or whatever. And so they took my laptop away and my phone, and I didn't talk to him anymore for a little while. And then all of a sudden, he found my new phone number somehow. It was able to text me and told me a lot of bad stuff is coming. And I was like, what bad stuff? And he told me the name of a demon that I'm not gonna say, because you're not supposed to say the names of demons. And I was just like, okay, because again, I was only 12, so I had no idea like what to magnitude that would mean until stuff did start happening. And again, my mom got mad that he was messaging me, because he did start to be really creepy too. Like, found out he was a hell of a lot older than I was. And so all in all, I cut him out and took him off all my stuff and just took a break from being on the internet and everything, which I really shouldn't have been anyway. And after that, my mom had friends that were, I guess, different. They were into theater like my mom is, and my mom was a director. When she wasn't feeling ill, she would direct musicals, and they were in a musical we were going to do called Sweeney Todd, and they were really good friends of my mom, but they had very different religious views, and I thought it was fascinating because I wanted to learn about all of the different religions, and seeing another religion practiced besides Christianity in real life to me was really cool. And they were pagan, and this was my first experience with anything, paganism related. Never knew really much about it other than what I read online. And they invited us to be in their wedding, and they wanted me to sing in their wedding, and I was all for it and excited. And while we were rehearsing for their wedding, my mom started to get really bad feelings about them. And so we were supposed to go to their dinner rehearsal that same night. My mom said, no, we're not going. And then they showed up at our house. And my mom's like, why are you here? You're supposed to be at your dinner rehearsal. And she's like, I just had a feeling that we needed to come over here and do a blessing. And she was like bless the house, like make sure stuff doesn't come back. And she was like, yeah. And my mom's like, oh, okay. So they came inside, and I guess my mom and all of us were just so petrified that was going to come back, or stuff would start happening again, that we didn't think that, okay, that's really suspicious that you just show up at a front door like that after my mom had a bad feeling. And they walked through the house. And while they were walking through the house, I started to have that anxiety, heavy feeling like I used to when everything was really bad, and like when I got physically attacked. And I told my mom, and she's like, oh, you're probably just scared, just don't think about it. And then the woman turned around and looked at me, and she said, it really wants you, doesn't it? And I was like, what? And she was like, the demon. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, the demon that hurt you. And she said, it really wants you. And I just kind of spaced out again and felt like hopeless. And she's like, but we'll take care of it. We're going at it with bells on. It'll be gone. It's fine. And I was like, okay, well, whatever you have to do. So they walked around the house literally with bells, and were ringing these bells and saying these chants or whatever. And my mom didn't really like that, because my mom's very Christian and was not having that. I was like, I really don't agree with that, but if you think it will help, then just keep doing it. And eventually they did that throughout the entire house. I don't know what they did, but afterwards they laid me down on the couch downstairs, which is the same couch that my mom basically died and came back to life on. And she said, I'm going to hold these beads over you, and wherever these beads land, or wherever they gravitate toward or something like that, is where all of this bad energy is coming from in you. And I was, again, like a preteen, terrified, had no idea. and they held these beads over top of like where my uterus would be. And I felt like electricity in my body, like in that area specifically, like shock me. And I was like, whoa, what was that? And she was like, oh, it's nothing. That's just the energy coming out of you. And I was like, okay, well, does that mean it's gone? She's like, yeah, it's gone. We took care of it. You don't have to worry about it anymore. We'll see you tomorrow for the wedding. And I was like, okay, thank you so much. Thank you for doing all this. And I wish I would have known what I know now then as to what they actually did, because it was not good and it was not to help us, but I will talk about that later. Because the wedding, a lot of really insane things happened there too. They got married in this really old cathedral, and it was like the Church of Masonry, but it was all ran down and old and really creepy. And when we walked in there, the energy of that place felt a lot like the house did when it was really bad. And I looked at my mom, she looked at me, and she was like, we just got to do this and leave, and then we won't ever talk to them ever again. But she's like, I can't just leave right now. And I was like, okay. And she's like, just sing, because whenever you sing, that's when you feel the most safe. And she was right. Whenever I feel scared, I always start singing, because for some reason it makes me feel better. And while I was getting ready to go on the stage before they actually got married to sing, my mom was holding Aria as a baby on her hip, and Aria pointed at something and just screamed so loud. And she didn't do that. She was not scared of anything, really, never had really pointed at something and screamed before. And my mom said she was shaking and terrified. So there was a guy that was backstage with my mom, and he was like, oh, she's real scared of something. And she's like, yeah, I don't know what she saw or who it was, but maybe it's the lights. He's like, yeah, it could be the lights or it could be something else. And she's like, oh, what do you mean? And then he went off and was doing something. And then my mom asked another one of her friends that was there if her friend had saw the stagehand. And she's like, what stagehand? And she said, the guy that's back there that's like doing the lights and stuff. And she's like, there's nobody that's working back there. There's nobody back there. And that's when my mom knew that that was a person that was not alive, because she asked multiple people after her as well, and he was a spirit or something. And when I went out there to sing, I was shaking, because not only was I scared to sing in front of a bunch of people, I was just scared of that place, and it just felt horrible. And I don't even remember singing there. I don't remember anything about when I was out there. I just remember going out there and then going back. And when you had to exit the stage, there was this really creepy hallway that you go down. And when I was walking down the hallway was moving. Like, it looked like it was moving back and forth. Like, if you walked through a fun house, that's what it looked like. And I ran to my mom and I told her that we needed to leave. And she was like, go in the bathroom and just calm down, and then we're gonna go soon. So I did. I went into the bathroom. And when I was in there, there was another girl that was in the bathroom with me. And she was like, are you okay? Because you don't look very good. And I said, no, I don't want to be here. I just want to go home. And she's like, is it because of us? And I said, what? And she said, is it because of us? And I was like, what are you talking about? And then she literally disappeared. And I don't know who she was, don't know if she actually was the spirit of a little girl or whatever, but she just disappeared. Then I ran back out to my mom, was like, we have to go right now. And she was like, okay, well, we'll go. And so when we left, we got home, all hell broke loose. After we got back from the wedding and everything that happened, we all instantly went into a depression. It was just like a heavy feeling all the time. We were all paranoid, couldn't sleep again, and it slowly grew back into activity, starting with being that there was an instance where I was going upstairs, and this will probably ring a bell for a lot of people that listened to the last episode or actually a few episodes ago, where my mom was going up the stairs in the farmhouse, and I, like my mom, had a weird feeling, turned around, and Shadow Man was sprinting up after me. I could not move. I tried and I couldn't. And eventually I broke free of feeling frozen when he was right behind me. And when I got to the top of the steps, I turned around and he was gone. And ever since that time I saw him many times, almost monthly after that point, whether he was standing in my bedroom or standing in the kitchen, standing in the living room, he was always around somewhere. And with him always being around, the guy that looked like the Scream painting always being in my parents' bathroom, and then there was also a little girl. The little girl would be at the middle of the staircase in this house and would just stand there and watch you. And sometimes you could see all of her, and sometimes you could see half of her, but most of the time you could just see the end of her dress sticking out between the wall and where the staircase opened up again. And we all eventually got used to her being there, where it didn't, scare us, which is really messed up that you have to get used to a spirit being in your house like that. It literally got normal for us. And Aria, my youngest sister, was scared of her. And we really weren't, but she was really scared of her. And there was a time when Aria was learning how to walk that she was going to try to go down the steps. She took off away from my mom and from me and was going to go try to go down the staircase. And we were like, Aria, stop, don't go, because you're going to fall. And something picked Aria up and literally flew her down the steps. I don't know if whatever did that was a good thing or a bad thing, but it picked her up from the top of the staircase and put her at the bottom. In my heart, I want to believe it was something good, trying to keep her safe, whether that was the little girl or not. I don't remember for sure, but I don't really think we saw the little girl much more after that. So maybe it was something good keeping her safe, but that would have been most likely the only good spirit that was in that house. After those instances, it really was just a lot of growling or hissing or waking up in the middle of the night like something was watching you. And when activity would happen, it would be small at first, and then it would lead up to something big that would happen. And in between the times of something erupting and happening that was, something you won't ever forget, we all felt physically affected. I've never told anybody this before, but there were time periods where I felt like I had different personalities, like I was a different person. And I mean that more than in a way where sometimes we just don't feel like ourselves. It was to a point where I literally felt like I was a boy, like I was supposed to be a boy. And it went as far as I would dress like a boy, I would cut my hair like a boy, I would literally want my name to be different. And my mom and dad both thought maybe it was because of all the trauma I had went through, so I was just trying to find who I was. But then it would go from I felt like I needed to be that person to I needed to be like a teacher. I changed the way I looked all the time into these different people where I didn't even look like myself. And then my mom was reading a book about how people that have abilities can be so manipulated by a spirit that they can literally become that person. And I think that's what was happening to me, and I didn't even know it until then. When my mom told me that, it stopped. I stopped feeling like I needed to be somebody else. And then that's when she was on the phone with my grandmother, and she was hysterical, talking about how she was so tired of being in this house and tired of all the things that were happening and the things that were happening to us. And she was just getting so angry about it. And I remember standing in the kitchen and looking at the gumball machine that we had on our kitchen counter, and I just felt like something was going to explode. And when the energy was like that, it always felt like that. But I really felt like something was going to explode. And sure enough, the gumball machine all of a sudden just exploded into a million pieces. Nothing touched it. Nothing would have made it explode. It just literally blew up. Glass went everywhere. The gumballs went everywhere. And it just was all over the floor. My mom was hysterical, even more so. And my grandma hung up the phone. And I think that she came over later that day and brought us a bunch of Bibles, even though we already had some, just more to put in every room of our house. We had holy water everywhere. We had crosses everywhere, crucifixes, St. Michael medallions, everything that you could have to try to keep bad stuff out. We had it. But whatever was there didn't care. It would flip the crosses upside down. It would move the Bibles. It would make us lose the medallions. Like, everything would just always end up somewhere it shouldn't be, or destroyed, or just disappear. And we just felt defeated. And we would stay up all night and sleep all day because we were too scared to be asleep at night. My dad would have the TVs in the house, every single one of them on the same channel for like Catholic Mass. So that was constantly on. Just anything that we could do to keep it at bay, we did it. And my mom got really desperate and tried to reach out to a pastor of an old church that we used to go to come to the house to bless the house. He was the same pastor that came when my mom thought she was gonna die for sure and read my mom her last rites. And when she called him, the person that answered the phone was not him. It sounded like somebody pretending to be him. And when my mom heard that, she hung up the phone, and then the number called her back. And she said, "Pastor Likeness, is that you?" And he said,
"No."
And she said, "Well, who is this?" And he said,
"Nobody's gonna help you."
And she said, "Who are you?" And he said,
"You know who I am."
And then the phone hung up. And we literally didn't know what to do because we couldn't reach out to anyone, because if they did, we couldn't get a hold of them, or this thing would pretend to be whoever we tried to get help from. And that same night that happened, this is something I have never told anyone besides my family. I was in the bathtub and I was singing like I always do when I feel afraid. And I was just sitting there trying to calm down after everything that had just happened with the gumball machine and the pastor that wasn't the pastor and everything else. And I felt like something was in the bathroom with me, so I started singing louder and louder, and I just heard something go, and it wasn't my dad, it wasn't my mom, it wasn't my sisters. And right after that happened, and I stopped singing, something pushed me underneath of the water in the bathtub and held me down to the point where I thought I was gonna die, like this thing was gonna kill me. And I don't remember much more than trying to fight and fight and fight and pray in my head for this thing to leave me alone. And in my head, I said, "You have no power." And when I said that, my dad picked me up out of the bathtub. Like, he came at that same moment that I was saying that in my head and picked me up. And my dad was white as a ghost. I was white and like panicking, couldn't breathe. And my dad just went into this rage of like, I'm gonna fucking destroy this house because it's gonna kill my family. And it's already tried to kill my wife. Now it's trying to kill my daughter. Now what's next? And he just went into this rage of like, I can't be here anymore. I can't do this shit anymore. We all felt like that. And when my dad started acting like that, the energy started lifting, and like his determination to get this thing to go away, just being angry, made it afraid. So we're like, we figured it out. If we yell at it and tell it it's not powerful enough to do this to us, it will go away. So we just started doing that, and it worked. We also remodeled the house. We made everything in the house light colored. We opened all the windows whenever we could. We just redid everything. And it slowly started to go away. In that time of everything changing and lifting and feeling better, we started to feel more like a normal family for the first time in this house, after it being almost 10 years of us living there. And at this time is when I started dating and started, living the most normal life that I could. And that is when we joined a new church, and we started going to church every Sunday. And my dad and my mom really wanted me to try to make friends. And I was really shy and closed off because it was hard for me to talk to people after everything I went through, and all the trauma just gave me a lot of anxiety. But then that's when I met AJ at youth group.
So the day I met Allie, it all started kind of with a friend who wasn't a friend to begin with. This kid that went to a different school than me during our middle school years actually moved just down the road from us, and we ended up kind of becoming friends just because he was the only other kid around my age that was living in the neighborhood at the time.
So that night that I met AJ, it was the first time I ever hung out at a guy's house before, and the only reason that I was allowed to do so was because my mom was friends with his parents, and my sister was actually dating the guy that I was dating's brother.
He called me one night, and sitting down in the basement playing video games like teenage boys do, and he called me and said, "Hey, my girlfriend is over here and she can sing."
When he told me about his friend that was going to come over, I was like, okay, sure, whatever. At that point, I really just wanted to go home. And he was like, oh, you gotta sing for him.
And I play guitar, and he at the time played bass. So we were kind of toying with the idea of getting together and jamming when, in fact, he liked a completely different genre of music than me. So it kind of never really worked out. But she ended up singing the song Broken over the phone to me.
And I, at that time, didn't really like to sing in front of people, so nervous. I was like, okay, I guess. And I sang for him. And I remember when I heard AJ's voice for the first time on the phone, I really, really liked the sound of his voice. Just by hearing her for the first time ever, she sounded pretty. And it made me even more nervous. And when I started singing and he was like, wow, you're really good, that meant a lot to me because my confidence was so low at that point, as all teenage girls are at that age. And then I got excited for him to come over, and I was like, oh, I hope he's cute.
So I decided to grabbed my acoustic guitar, and then I headed my way down the street to his house. So I show up at his house. It's probably about 9 o'clock at night, and they were in the basement. So I go down in the basement, and that's when I see my friend and Allie. And when I saw Allie, immediately I was just flush, just went pink, just started blushing.
And when he came over, and I'll never forget what he was wearing. He was wearing like black skinny jeans and some kind of band t-shirt. I think it was a Green Day shirt, and a black jacket and a black beanie.
And I was like, really, how did you end up being with a girl that looks like this?
And when I saw him, I was like, oh my God, you're hot. And that was it. As soon as I saw him, I just knew, like, he's the person I'm supposed to be with.
And here I am. I got all dressed up and I decided what I wanted to wear. And show up in the basement with my guitar. And of course, my first natural instinct is to pull it out and start playing for a little bit.
And then we started talking about music and how much we both loved Green Day. And I was like, I hope he really does actually like Green Day and he's not just saying that because I do.
So I start playing guitar and I find out that she likes Green Day. And we are both big Green Day fans. So I started playing some Green Day songs. I think I played Good Riddance and Wake Me Up When September Ends were the first two songs that I played.
I've been waiting a long time for this moment to come. I'm destined for anything at all. Downtown, lights will be shining on me like a new diamond ring out under the midnight hour. No one can touch me now, and I can't turn my back. It's too late for anything at all. Well, I'm so much closer than I have ever known.
I could tell that the guy I was dating was jealous and like, oh, well, I'm better than he is and blah, 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 just trying to show off. And then it became a battle of them two trying to show off.
Start playing for a little bit just to kind of show off, be a show off in front of this pretty girl that I just met.
And I remember at some point that AJ, his pants just fell down. Still had like underwear on, but like, I don't know if that was supposed to be his way of impressing me or whatever. But I mean, I guess I can't say it didn't work.
So I kind of put two and two together and we hung out for a little bit and she sung and she just has the voice of an absolute angel when she sings. And it was just an awkward encounter because, you know, here I am crushing on my friend's girlfriend at the time, only to find out they'd only been together for a week. So I figured if I was going to make a move, I probably should make it soon.
And then after AJ left, Sean was really pissed that AJ was like flirting with me, told me not to talk to him or whatever. And I was like, yeah, okay, whatever you say.
Not trying to be the stereotypical Mr. Steal Your Girl, but I was in a way.
And then when I got home, I told my sister about AJ, and so she was all excited for me because she had never seen me like that before. And I was like, oh, I really hope that there's some way that I could see him again or talk to him. And so I tried looking him up on Facebook, on whatever I could, and I couldn't just be like, hey, Sean, what was your friend's phone number? So I just had to hope that I would see him again. And then, sure enough, a few days later, I did see him again.
So the next time I was hanging out with Sean, the friendship had been a little on the rocks since the first time I met Allie, understandably, as I had been flirting with his girlfriend openly in front of him. I probably would have ended the friendship if the roles were reversed. Certainly would not have continued to be friends with a guy that was flirting with my girlfriend. But one day, Sean inevitably did something to piss off Allie because he was just a brutish, crude person in nature. It's just who he is, who he was, just the type of guy he was. Very, quote unquote manly man. He didn't really care what other people thought. So that, of course, caught him a lot of flack with not only everybody, but the ladies, specifically Allie. So Sean, not having the muster or the balls to talk to his girlfriend on his own accord because she was mad at him, had me talk to her, which probably was one of the worst mistakes he could have made. So here I am going on and on about, for the first maybe few minutes of the phone call. First of all, when I called, she thought that I was her ex-boyfriend, who she had really only met once or twice. A gentleman named Michael lived up north from us. He was a good hour and a half drive away. So she first thought that I was her ex-boyfriend because of the area code of my phone number. So reluctantly she answered, and she was like, "Hello?" Kind of a pissed off, "Why are you calling me? Hello?" I was like, "Hey, Allie, it's AJ." And she's like, "Oh, hi." And then I could tell she pulled the phone away or muted the phone or something to probably, I don't know, tell her sister or something. So I'm like, "Hey, I'm calling for Sean. I know everything that's going on, blah, 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 blah." For the first 2 minutes, I said, Sean really does like you. I think I even said he loves you, which he didn't. From that point on, I then proceeded to tell her how amazing she was and how great I thought she was, and just kind of subtly worked in the things that I liked about her, phrased through the words of Sean. And I could tell on the other end of the line she was blushing and trying to hold back, just saying, "Hey, yeah, screw you, Sean, I want to date this AJ kid." And I wasn't really the most confident kid at the time either. I mean, I like to think I was, but I certainly could have been more confident in everything that I did, and I still could be to this day. But that was one thing that I knew I had to pursue was Allison Foster. Now she's Allie Bennett because I actually married the girl that I stole from my friend in the basement. So when it finally came out that I was dating Sean's now ex-girlfriend, I went over to his house just to kind of see how things stood. I didn't necessarily expect to be able to continue to be friends with him, but I just wanted to have a conversation with him and see if we could be, as adults as teenage boys can be about the situation. So I go over, we go into the garage, and we're hanging out for a little bit, and my other friend, Bryce, was present as well, and he could personally attest to this day if you spoke to him. So we're talking about it, and the argument starts to get a little bit heated, so we kind of go out in the driveway. Bryce, for some unknown reason, just climbs the tree. He was a strange man, but just climbs the tree, so he's just sitting in the tree branch watching all of this happen. Sean's starting to yell at me. Sean goes back in the garage, and I think Sean maybe went inside to cool off for a little bit, comes back out with a shovel and starts chasing me down the end of the drive, screaming at me, cussing at me, telling me that he's going to fucking kill me. All sorts of crazy stuff. And then Sean was a little bit of a heavier set dude, and I'm not. So I was easily able to kind of outrun the slow stomping pace of this man. I get to the end of the driveway, I get into the street, and I turn around and I'm yelling at him, telling him I'm sorry. And he just kind of throws the shovel at me halfway down the street and attempts to hit me with the shovel. He was swinging the shovel a couple of times before as well, but attempts to hit me with this final shovel throw. And I'm just standing in the middle of the road, and it just kind of lands and goes, psh, skids right up to me. And I just said, all right, if that's how it's going to be, then so be it. So I just walked away, and that was that. And that was the last time I spoke to Sean for quite a long time, actually.
After AJ and I did finally start dating, I guess not finally, because it was only a few days afterwards, but when you're a teenager, it feels like forever. AJ came to the youth group that I talked about with me, and it was probably the first time we'd really hung out together, and we were playing this hide and seek game in the church, and the church was a lot older. They had a lot of funerals that they held there and such. I think there actually was a recent one right before this instance as well, but when we were playing hide and seek, I felt really on edge. Not even just because we were doing it like in the dark and somebody was looking for you with a flashlight. It was more than that. It was like that feeling from the house came back. And I was like, please don't let anything happen right now. Don't mess this up for me. I don't want him to think I'm nuts. And when I was sitting there with him while we're playing hide and seek in this like back room that just had like a bunch of tables and chairs in it, I started looking up at the wall, and then he looked at me like, what are you looking at? And I was like, nothing, it's nothing. And he's like,
what are you looking at? Like, what is it? What do you see? What's wrong? And she had never really told me too much about her capabilities and abilities before this point. So this was kind of I think for her, the breaking point as to, am I going to tell this kid what I see, and is he going to think I'm crazy, or is he going to believe me? So she told me, and I grew up in a pretty sheltered, devout Christian home, and we never really spoke of the paranormal in any way. It's never a topic that really came about. So I wasn't really educated to it. You know, I knew the typical horror story, horror movie, ghost stuff, which is not at all how it truly is. But that's really all I knew about this. So she explains to me what she sees. And at first I'm like, you know, I don't know. I don't know if I believe her. I don't know if it's just because we're in the dark. I'm a pretty logical person when it comes to everything in my life. So I always try to find a logical explanation to prove any point to myself before I start to second guess it. So initially my first thought was, we're in the dark. Her eyes are adjusting to the dark. Then she explains to me, no, this isn't the first time I've ever seen anything. This is just the first time I've seen anything with you around. And that's when I kind of was like, okay, you know, I don't know anything about this, but I trust her and I believe her. So that is the first opening that I've had to the world of the paranormal.